So we are on. How about everybody? You can introduce yourself from top left, and then we'll do like the political compass here.
My name is Brooklyn. I am in college, and I'm taking classes to be a theater tech, to be a professional theater tech, specifically like puppetry and costuming.
And you're on TikTok as General D, like a rat General D.
Yeah.
You've done
Yeah,
something.
I am on everything that I have is some form of finishing the rat. My TikTok is starting on a rat.
And I guess we'll go with Gwyn.
Hi, I'm Gwyn. I'm 16. I started the revival effort, at least the modern one. I randomly stumbled across this musical in a study hall, and now I work on it like every single day.
That's great. So, and Ronnie?
Hi,
You're on.
I'm Ronnie. I am actually turning 20 in a couple weeks, so that's exciting. I am also going to school. I'm in college to be a theater person. I am thinking about choosing a focus in makeup. My thing.
And you're on TikTok as Raggedy Ann and as like a wolf with a very specific like color makeup. I think this is canon now. Like that's one of the things about this revival effort that I like. Your canon, you've got head canons because this is a fandom. It's not just like a musical theater project. It's also a fandom. So you've got head canons, and I've kind of tried to contribute to this a little bit. And you put a lot of effort into. I think you were working with Mac, who's not here. I think on the wig and everything to get Raggedy Ann's look specifically like it's Is that supposed to be like an exact Ivy Raggedy Ann or?
It's very much based on Ivy's costume, but Mac put her own spin on it with the fabric, which is an exact like the print of it, and then she made it very big and very oversized. It's a doll.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to look small with like big oversized clothes. She did a really, really amazing job.
It's not easy to do, and everything Mac does with plushes is really impressive. And there's also a lot of them are like headcanon plushes. Like it's specifically like before I even visited the server, I was pushing for this, but I was not the first person to suggest because nobody likes the character of Panda in the Raggedy Ann musical. At the time, you were debating whether to replace Panda with Babette or with like a grumpy teddy bear. And I was always pushing for the teddy bear, but like I was not the first person to suggest this, but I think the teddy bear now has a very specific design, color scheme, and headcanon and everything. The thing about you can't work Babette into the musical because it's a different story, I think. So I think that always felt a little clunky, whereas with the teddy bear, you can just kind of have the same shape language. He doesn't look like Baby or like Anne. He doesn't look the same as any other character. It's a good shape language on stage. So I was like, you do need a bear. But like Mac has made that bear and like you've got a specific Raggedy Ann.
Something about Raggedy Ann in general, I think it's the movie and the show, something about it holds your attention for a long time. Usually I'm only in fandoms for like a few months tops, but I've been in this fandom for over a year now. Something about this musical, like, it's like a chokehold.
I think for me, it's a combination of the characters and the story itself. Because it's quite an interesting story.
Right, it's both something that you can be kind of like chaotic in fandom about, oh, look how much I love these characters, but also like something where I can and really analyze like what Gibson was trying to say in an interesting way as well.
Raggedy Ann, I think, is an idea whose time has come in a way because you need like more positivity. I think in 2022, I think that everybody like 2000s internet was very like edgelord, and I don't think you could be as sincere. And that very much got separated. So all the edgelords kind of became like fully radicalized in a very dark way, and then like the kind of the softer edge of it is something that is more prominent, and people are, you've got to be soft to be strong. And it is also, it's a project that was messed up, and that you feel the need to fix it and to put it on and to actually make this happen, and that it could be something like important for people. But there's also a lot of lore to it, obviously, because it was a popular thing in like the 20s. Like Johnny Gruelle would do stories and cartoons for newspapers like back then in the day. What do you think appeals to like the fandom today, and what's it like being part of that fandom now?
I think that the main thing that draws the fandom in is like the intrigue and mystery surrounding it. At least at first it was. And then I think over time they started to realize that it's not the same story, but it's like it's sort of the same characters. And I think it's almost like an alternate universe, sorta. And so people are really, I think that draws people in. I think they like it a lot. They like how there's some diversity in the characterizations there.
The intrigue is definitely a big part of it, because like there's some overlap with the new Lost Media fandom in this sort of, it was canceled off Broadway and it hasn't been seen since the 80s. That draw is definitely part of it.
Well, how did this all start for you, Gwyn?
Goodness gracious. So, we were doing virtual learning at that point because of COVID and everything, and instead of a snow day, we decided to go virtual. And I was watching the movie, and I think that mixed with me watching Pokemon Live for some reason, culminated in a recommendation to Colin Looks Back's video about the musical. And I don't know what it was that compelled me to make a Tumblr and make a Discord and everything, but I made it literally in less than an hour. And like 15 minutes later, there was Ronnie. Ronnie was the very first person to join. I think by the end of the week, we had like 20, 30 people, which was crazy at the time. And now, of course, we have over 100. The first thing I did was contact people who I knew had the script and contact Ivy Austin. And Ivy, for obvious reasons, was like, I can't give you the script. And I'm like, I understand. Ivy gave me Nick's contact, Nick Raposo, son of Joe Raposo, who did the music. And I got some of the early sheet music for both the movie and the musical, mostly the movie, actually. But that was a good find. And so I think, and then one of my friends sent me the New York Public Library script because he had it. So I think soon around that time we made our Google Drive, and then Brooke and the rest of them came in a little later and helped organize things, and we've been trucking along ever since.
Well, where do you think this fandom came from, and why? Like, was it a general Raggedy Ann fandom? It blew up at the end of 2020, is what I'm told.
I had a friend from another server just like send me the movie, like, hey, you like animation and you make dolls, you should check this out. And then it recommends the Colin Looks Back video. And then we get into it.
No, I think I was watching something before it, and I wasn't paying attention to class, obviously, because I watched the movie the same day when I made all this. And I was watching something on YouTube, and I think it started auto-playing, honestly, so I have no idea.
I think for my generation, we thought of it as not so much heartwarming as fucked up. And I think that this is a time of greater sincerity. I've heard the word cottagecore used, like you kind of... That's something I'm hearing. Is that what's appealing to people? Because I think there's a lot that's lovely about the film, especially in if I can toot my own horn, in my restoration from 2008, and then from this past year I worked very hard to do another one. Like, I think you can appreciate the craft of it a little. Vinnie Rattolle was a blogger who talked about obscure stuff. Vinnie would blog about this stuff, and there was a 1988 musical of the Brian De Palma horror movie Carrie with Sissy Spacek and John Travolta, which the musical flopped. And Vinnie really fought hard to get that musical production revived, and it was revived successfully. And I think he hoped that he could do this for Raggedy Ann, Ragdolly, the Joe Raposo musical, but he was familiar with the film, and he posted stuff about the film, and so he was on my radar. And then one day someone shared a bootleg of Ragdolly, and this might have been like 2010, I don't know exactly. But I do know that we were researching this in 2013 at least. And I said, and I know we'd been researching it a little bit before that, but I know I contacted Ivy and Nick Raposo and Patricia Snyder even in 2013, and Lisa Rifle. who played Marcella. But nobody else cared except for like Vinnie and I. It wasn't like a big thing, and like there was no Raggedy Ann fandom. And I think people thought of the movie as fucked up. And then I'm looking and I hear rumblings that there's a Raggedy Ann fandom. And then somebody contacted me on Twitter about this, and I was saying, well, I can't tell you that, and I think your whole Discord server was saying, who is this old guy, and why is he being so paranoid about everything? And I'm like, it's actually a complicated story. But I joined, and I was like, actually, okay, here's stuff I've done, and I just want to help you guys. I'm not the enemy.
Someone says that they found like Raggedy Ann through the Animaniacs fandom, which is definitely how I found it too.
Okay.
It was through the Animaniacs. It was through the Animaniacs people.
I was in the Animaniacs fandom too.
Oh God, I was a huge Animaniacs fan when it was first running in '92 or '93.
That was the fandom I was in directly before Raggedy Ann.
Yeah,
I think Raggedy Ann, Moomin, and Animaniacs have like a large overlap in their fandom.
The way that I found Raggedy Ann was because I was a little bit of an animation nerd when I was in high school. Still kind of am. So I knew who Richard Williams was. And I was going to start watching through his entire filmography. And I got to Raggedy Ann. I had watched Thief first.
Oh,
but I got to Raggedy Ann.
We're cobbled, I hope.
Yes, I did watch Cobbled. Okay. I've never seen the
Miramax
actual
one.
Like the Miramax. I've never seen it.
Yeah. I spent 8 years on that picture. So.
And then I watched Raggedy Ann because, it's a Richard Williams movie, so I watched it. And I didn't think much of it. I thought, the animation's nice, the music is nice, it's really cute. Through that, I had found a small fandom for the Raggedy Ann movie online. Because I think I watched it in like 2018 or 2019, so it was before it had gotten like big. And one of those people was Frankie, who is one of the people who started researching Ragdolly. Actually, I was following Frankie before because they were a fan of SpongeBob the Musical, which I was super, super into in high school. So that sort of made that connection, and I was like, I already know this person because I already follow them on Tumblr. And then they started posting about Ragdolly, and I was like, what is this? Because I know the movie. And then I fell down the rabbit hole in about like 2019, and that's how Gwyn found me. Because I had found, on archive.org, I had found a review of the Broadway show that had a clip of Ragdolly in it. I found the Jeffrey Lyons review on archive.org, and I noticed that it hadn't been uploaded to YouTube yet. I had cut out the clip of Ivy singing Ragdolly, and uploaded it to my YouTube channel. Obviously, I credited, and I had a link to the original post.
On the musical. That was the second video I ever saw.
The Ragdolly in the USSR, that came late in our research. Like, that was something that Ivy uploaded herself, obviously. And she had like a DVD. She got a DVD made of it and was able to put it up. And that was like some negotiation. But I remember in 2013, even, I was finding it hard to get into the musical because the existing bootlegs were mostly pretty poor quality, and you couldn't really follow the dialogue or really know what was going on, and we didn't have visuals for it. So early on, it was very hard to know what was going on, and I think the first time that I really fully processed the whole play was through what you were doing on the Rare server, because you were able to find a video of it, obviously, of the early Isipa performance, but also had a script, had all kinds of material, and that made it a lot easier. But I did find, like, when I was listening to it again, I felt like these songs had always been around. Like, I think in another, I think that what Joe Raposa's work on the stage show is better than on the film by quite a bit. And I think these songs are... they're more emotional, they're more moving, they've got a lot going on. It was too dark for what the 80s wanted, and William Gibson's script was too dark, and obviously they were fighting and this and that, but I think they are that good. I think the show is good. And you've been writing like a new version. You did a table read of a new version of the script. I was following this for a while, but then I was like, I should probably I would have opinions about this, and I should probably just leave you to it.
We listened to your opinions.
Yeah.
I just got too many. But Brooke, how did you get into all this, and what's it been like?
I'm a big theater person for a while. So I write a lot, and I've written some plays and stuff. So I got into it, and as soon as Gwen said we're working on a script, it's like, oh, that is something I want to help with. And when I first got into it, it was just I like the more obscure stuff. I like stuff that you always can't figure out. And at first it was just, this music's really nice and it's all really well put together. But then as soon as we got the scripts, especially, I was like, wow, there's a lot to this show that is really hard to pick up via the Broadway bootleg. Yeah. And this was before we even knew we were going to have footage. This was just based off of the scripts. We have 7 scripts.
It's a lot
across 3 years.
It's a lot,
and so
the show is
reading all of those scripts, reading all of the changes between them, reading the Gibson journals, which is my favorite thing. One of my favorite things we found is William Gibson's account of the production and all of his thoughts about the arguments and how everything was going and the changes that were made. Was always really interesting, and realizing that there was just a lot more to this artistically, thematically, that Gibson wanted to be in there, that Gibson really had this artistic inspiration of everything that he felt that he wanted to say, which is so much more than that you can find on a surface level listening to the demos or barely being able to understand.
Yeah, understand it. There's so much there. What do you think? What went wrong when this play was originally put on Broadway and it was being created? What went wrong? I know that's a big topic.
I think that the best version is probably one that we don't have any footage or audio of. I would assume it's somewhere in the middle, because before it got to Broadway, there was a lot of issues, and then when it got to Broadway, there was a bunch of different issues. So
I 100%
the best version
agree.
Is somewhere between the one we have footage of and Moscow.
100% agree. Totally agree.
I think the start would be the time. Gibson was contacted in July, for the show that had to open in December. That was the first thing, because they had done the show in December of '83, and so to keep the rights to be able to keep performing it, they had to do another show that next year, and so Gibson wasn't on board until July, and then he wrote the script in a month, and then they worked on it for another month. And then by October, they were casting, and by November, they were rehearsing, and then December, they were putting on the show.
There's also a mismatch of talents. There's great talents here, but there are people who don't get along, and like William Gibson, I think, is often characterized as I will cause problems on purpose. That means
a little bit. I mean, Raposo too, to a point. Although Raposo also had a lot of other projects that he was already contracted to work on at the same time. Between Gibson saying, well, you hired me to do this, so I'm going to do whatever I want and do this, and if you shouldn't have wanted me to do whatever I want, then you shouldn't have hired me.
I also think it was silly I don't know if it was Pat Birch or Snyder, whichever one hired Gibson, to
Snyder.
After Snyder, yeah. He said no 4 times.
It's not his kind of thing.
It's not.
And I understand if he says no once, and then you're just try it, man. He's all right. But I think I think it's kind of silly, but I mean, I'm glad they did persist in the end because what we got is pretty beautiful. If it just needs a little bit of work, but it's a pretty gorgeous show.
Literally, the opening line of his memoir is, "I got into this the 10th time Snyder asked me to write it."
10th, okay, that's it.
But that tension between the various camps of it is interesting. Like, there is that tension between wanting to do a darker show and wanting to do a more pleasant or more emotional show or grounded show. That fighting resulted in a better show in some ways. Not in all ways, but in some ways.
Oh, yeah. Someone saying, the version shown at ASIPA definitely needs work, but it sounds like the work they did to it back in the day wasn't the work that it needed. Correct! That's very much, like, I consider... Because the thing is, everyone on it was, like Garrett said, like, talent. Like, they all were very good. They just lacked a mediator. Lacked something to bring it together. So I actually find the 1984 version to be a better version than a lot of the later ones, because it had the most... It was before they had removed all of the stuff that Gibson wanted. A lot of the darker stuff. But they hadn't like really removed that well and worked on it well. In artistic intent, it is a more complete show than all later versions, but also it's rough in its own ways.
They cut Mexico.
Yeah, it's rough. But you need to go into it knowing that. You can't expect a fully realized experience. It was the first production of the show. They had 5 months to develop the whole thing and put it on.
They were afraid it would scare parents, and they cut out some of the emotions of it, when really the reason it's probably better is because of before that is because of the performances, because the video we have is not quite there. Like, they seem a little scared of how dark it is in the performances. Yeah. It's tentative. There's something a little tentative about it. Complex and layered, but tentative. But with this musical, it is hard to stage for a lot of reasons, and hard to track down stuff from it, or hard to track down. I know Ivy wanted to do something with it, though. Mm-hmm. She was always supportive, and I talked to her back in 2013. But it was also like, I don't know how Mac got started, but I did say to you on the Rare Discord that, like, you should probably just put it on and see what happens, because who's going to stop you? But because the permission might not be easy to get. Though I know you've been actually working with that and trying to do it right, and you've gotten so much farther than I ever did, or that Vinnie ever did. So I'm hugely impressed by everything you've managed to find and organize, and it's really, certainly anyone could put the show on now and really understand it, which was not the case in 2013 when we were doing this research.
Like, we want to wait until we can get it. We want to be the ones able to get it officially, but we support others in, like, using the songs. I mean, at this point, like, if you're just using the songs, I don't think the Raposos would do anything, because they're pretty supportive generally of what we're doing. I don't know about the script.
Yeah, the script is a whole other story. That was the part that was difficult for us to sort of figure out the whole copyright situation with. But we are on our way, on the right track to getting the performing rights, which is very, very exciting.
The show, at least, like, we know who technically owns it. You know, like, compared to a movie, we can say it is the Raposos and it is the Gibson estate. And we can directly towards them and be like, you're the only people that we really need to work with us. But
the Gruel family also.
Yeah, and we don't know what all is included yet with the performing rights. We don't know if the characters are included or not, and if they aren't, then we do have to go through the Gruel family or through Bob's Merrill or whoever owns the characters.
It's funny what they've been doing in Russia all this time. Like, you've got a channel for the Russian productions, because it was performed very successfully in Moscow and then flopped on Broadway, and that's what the documentary is about, Ragdoll in the USSR.
Right.
But it remained in the cultural memory, and I don't know how legal it even is, because they don't seem to know what Raggedy Ann is.
It's not legal at all.
They don't use the songs. There's one production that used the songs, but usually they don't use the songs. and then with like what disco diagnosis in it, and then their interpretations of the characters are unique.
One thing, you say like, just perform it, and that way, people will see that there's an audience for it. We can just point to the fact that it's been going strong in Russia this whole time, even like stripped down to just the script and not fully understanding it. There's clearly an audience for this show, because we have a whole list of like a bunch of
Russian productions,
of just bootleg Russian productions that have done it. Like, clearly it's a compelling show that people enjoy.
It's a good story, and I can't really say that about the film, except that there is stuff about the film that the film is a different story, and I think people do need to realize that, because a lot of times when people want to work on the musical and this and that, they want to make it more like the film. They want to make it. They want to do more with Andy. They want to do something with Babette. They want to do more with the camel. And the musical is very much about Raggedy Ann and Marcella. It's not about Andy. Andy doesn't get a lot to do. And the camel does sing Blue out of nowhere, because he doesn't have that arc. He doesn't have that arc as a main character that he has.
Our version, it does expand Andy a little bit. It does expand the camel, but it still tries to keep them very much background characters.
They're supporting characters.
They're supporting characters still. We add No Girl's Toy possibly and Candy Hearts, but it's still very much... Candy Hearts especially is still is Andy's arc, but Andy's arc very much how it ties into Anne and her arc as well.
Right. I think that's a good move, because it's good to give Andy something to do, but people do forget this isn't Raggedy Ann and Andy, this musical. So like you can do it without it. And they cut Mexico, which is Andy's big song. It's insane. From Broadway.
Why did they cut it?
It's a fan
Gibson
favorite.
didn't like it.
It wasn't just Gibson. A lot of people didn't like Mexico, the song. Because they thought it was irrelevant, which it's not. You have to pay attention, and they explain why it's not irrelevant.
Why are they singing about Mexico? They don't go to Mexico. Well, because they're going through the Panama Canal.
Right.
That's why they're singing about Mexico.
But it's never mentioned again.
And I think we've now figured out the connection with the Animaniacs fandom. What were you trying to do when you're rewriting the script? What are you focusing on here?
Expanding on the potential of the original script. There's a lot of really good ideas in the original script, a lot of actually very good writing, but it's just not executed super well.
Gibson wrote all of these really subtle, subtextual sort of things, but when you're being distracted by some of the stranger stuff, some of the spectacle, that doesn't come across very well, which is of course what he hated. That he couldn't write this stuff as subtly as he wanted to, but a lot of it's really good. It just needed to be brought into the forefront a little bit more, so that the casual viewer could understand it and see it. So it's mostly stuff that is very present in Gibson's original writing. You just don't see it, and then by the Broadway, it's almost completely washed out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the reconciliation with the mother / the witch is watered down so much because they were afraid of the implications by the term of the Broadway. So a lot of times it's just about going back to the preferred version. At least if I were doing it. It would be going back to the preferred version rather than. But I think a lot of what was doing when I saw what the Rare was doing with the script, it was saying stuff out loud that doesn't get said, and I had mixed feelings about that. But it was making stuff a little more explicit and said directly.
Right, and it's a tug of war between it usually ends up getting this is what we want this scene to say really explicitly, and then it gets pulled back into more of what how Gibson would have said it and weaved into the story. So a lot of our original work was really explicit and really obvious. But as we fine tune it, it becomes a little more seamless.
And that's what we're working on right now. Sort of fine tuning everything and
using a little more wordplay, a little more subtext, but finding that medium between what Gibson originally had and then some of our ideas.
Someone said, Mac said, talk about the new witch scene. I am so down to talk about the new witch scene. The hardest thing in the world. I don't know, man.
Bat's death is still killing me.
That stuff is so hard, but I think the witch scene is what stumped me the most. Because of course you have to rewrite everything about the witch so that people aren't like totally shocked and hating on you because there's like a literal noose in the show. So you have to rewrite all that. And then of course you have to keep the same emotion. She's still suicidal, obviously. That like you can't have the scene without that. Also, Marcella can't quite forgive her, and if she does forgive her, it has to be for a really, really good reason, which there isn't really a good
reason. And the thing is, in the original India Sipa, it's really hard to tell because that scene moves really quickly after the song.
Yeah, it does.
In the Sipa, Marcella doesn't forgive her very easily.
Right.
And in the original Gibson ones, it was even less so. That, like, Marcella was not on board with forgiving her.
This is one of my biggest issues with Broadway. When they realized that people didn't like the darkness, they watered it down too much. And that's when they were like, the easy, oh, I forgive you, like, immediately. That doesn't work. And it takes away all the emotional, like, depth of the scene.
Right, so it's now... And it's hard to describe exactly what we changed, because a lot of the dialogue is Gibson's original dialogue in one way or another. It's just shifted around a lot. It's a little more put front and center, like actually talking a little bit more about her backstory and, like, the reason that she left, you know, and Papa and Mommy's relationship, and not just being like, oh, I'm suicidal, it's hysterical, which it feels a little bit. And Gibson himself called it a farce, so he knew what he was doing.
And I love what we've done, but it's really hard to explain because it's so different. It's so different, but at the same time it has the emotion Gibson wanted there. Not only does it make Marcella's forgiveness more realistic, it makes Mommy as a character a lot more realistic and portrayed in a lot more
a sensitive way.
A humanized aspect. In the old one, she was there. They played it for laughs, which is terrible.
It's mostly those emotional beats are the parts that get changed the most, and it's hard to describe because a lot of them are the same scene. Same people go in, same emotions essentially come out, but they're very much shifted both to make things follow a little clearer for the audience as well as to tie in themes across the show so it doesn't feel quite as much like a surprise when it's suddenly, oh, this theme was here, this is what we're talking about now, instead of something that's been very much tied into the entire show.
Another place where we've incorporated that is the argument in the clouds. Before, in basically every iteration, it was kind of stupid and kind of came out of nowhere. And now, with Marcella being more active in her own story, which is wonderful, that was a big problem with the show originally, too.
Yeah.
Right.
She has a say in, like, telling Anne that she's overwhelmed and that she wants to, like, sit back, take a break for a second, and comprehend everything that's going on around her. And I think it adds a lot of emotion to the argument. It makes it come in a spot that makes sense and not out of nowhere. We've kind of mushed together aspects of the argument from different versions, and then Mac, when she joined, helped a whole bunch on making it feel right emotionally.
Yes.
I think we're at a good place with that, too.
And it's very much part of Anne's arc in that, like, she's sort of coming into her own and, like, realizing what she needs to do to help Marcella and realizing, like, who she is, where Marcella's a little more active in Anne's arc instead of Anne passively realizing, oh, what I'm doing isn't working, I need to be better at what I'm doing in all of this. She gets a little more direct response from Marcella.
I think we kind of, this is kind of part headcanon, but I think it was kind of implied with Gibson's original script. It's a little shack by the Hudson, which sounds a lot like what are they called again? You guys
Hooverville. That's where Gibson grew up. He grew up in the Bronx during the Great Depression, so it feels very much like... it feels
right that the story takes place during that time, and then it would make sense why Papa can't afford the medical bills and, you know, all the dreariness of their house, and he's just a poor tailor.
The tension in the relationship, a lot of things.
The first thing in the process, I don't know, I think I just was really attached to Babette as a character, and so that's why I wrote her in. And I kinda could tell she wasn't working, but I really couldn't think of another alternative, because you have to rewrite all the lines anyway. And she was okay. But she didn't round out the cast well enough. She was too similar to Baby and Anne, and she wasn't working great. And then there was a period where I think it was you, Garrett, or you and someone who suggested just a generic bear, and I was still rather attached to Babette, but I was like, it'll probably work better. I was just trying to figure out how to fit him in, who he'd be as a character. And Babette was easier, obviously, because she's already a character. She already has all her stuff fleshed out for us. And there was a little period in there where I was like, should I put Clem in at this point? Clem from the books. Because I was really struggling with figuring out how we would do a bear character different enough from Panda. And then I think the design, the color, someone made the color scheme. I
did the color scheme?
Yes. Did the color scheme. I drew up a little design. We started making some cute little headcanons for him, and I was like, alright, this is
I think I was the one who came up with, like, his personality.
Teddy is Ronnie's baby. Teddy is the best. And the one thing that Babette did give us, which I love, is so in the original, General D goes over to touch Anne's heart for some reason. And
he goes over. It's where the ring is. He wants his ring back, and it's right next to the heart, and he touches the heart.
And he touches the heart and melts. It's really, really stupid. So I was like, I'm not gonna keep that because that's dumb. And Gibson clearly just wrote himself into a corner. You know, I need a way to fix that. So with Babette, we wrote in a epic sword fight, frankly. It was epic. And that's the one thing she gave us that we kept with Teddy. And I love it, and it fits so well.
Teddy is like a little, like, scholarly British bear.
Right.
I love him. But we wanted to keep the sword fight, and so we were like, how do we keep the sword fight? Well, Teddy took fencing as an extracurricular when he was in college, when he was in university, and that's why he knows how to fence.
Right.
He's a bookworm.
I think the color scheme was what really started it off, because once you know what he looks like, and it's like this is how, like, it's nice that it's a fandom, because it became this idea that built. I think he's in a great place, but it's like also Mac made plushes, and that includes Baby and Teddy and all the characters, and I think that's really special. What are you hoping to accomplish, or what were you hoping to achieve originally? Because you've achieved so much, and I think we should actually talk about that and give you credit for everything that you've achieved that I couldn't. Because I remember when I first started, I was like, I'm not going to tell them the stuff where we hit a roadblock, and I just stopped, because I'm hoping, maybe that you won't. And I don't think it stopped you. I don't think a lot of stuff stopped you, and I think you were able to find a huge trove of stuff, and hopefully there's a happy ending here. But I think what you've already done is so wonderful, and would allow the show to be preserved, I think, for future generations in a way that was unthinkable in 2013.
Yeah, I think it's even the stuff that you have, the roadblocks you have told us about, we kind of just ignore that.
Yeah.
Good.
I think from the beginning I kind of wanted to get it either musically or somehow back on stage. But I think originally when I was first starting out and I realized this was going to be like a super long process, I wanted to at least find some better quality footage, which we did. But then once we got that, I always knew I wanted to revive it and get it on stage in some form or another. But once we actually did find the footage, I think that's when it solidified that for me. I was like, we got to get this on stage. And at the very least, I want to somehow get it licensable for schools and public theaters, because I think it's a really good, good material.
That's my main goal, to get it to be able to be licensed to schools and community theaters. Even if we can't put on a production of it ourselves, which is something that we really want to do, just having it available to be performed is good enough for me.
It's a sort of sweet spot. Like, I think Raggedy Ann and Andy is a kid's show with darker themes, and I think that's exactly what high schoolers want to be doing, to be honest.
Exactly.
I think that they want, like, parents want something that looks very kiddie for their high school kids, and high school kids want something that's actually super.
Want something that's not. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can we answer some chat questions also? If
yes, someone had asked what the first thing we found was. The first thing we found was, technically we didn't find it. I was sent the script by a friend. But the first thing we found ourselves, I think, honestly, maybe it's the video, because we got a lot of stuff.
No, we had found sheet music.
Sheet music, that's it. We found sheet music.
So the things we have, I think, so we have the sheet music from the Raposos, the Harvard stuff, which wasn't specifically found by us.
Yeah, it was sent to us by someone.
But it was sent to us, and, like, not a lot of people knew about it until it was sent to us. Like, we archived it.
And there's, like, 8 scripts in there in the Gibson journals. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Fantastic.
And, like, a bunch of promotional stuff, and it's great.
Right.
Yes, a lot of photos, and a lot of the Russian materials we found. A lot we had, what, like 50 different Russian productions just
we have so many.
It's crazy.
But obviously the biggest thing we found was the video.
A lot is just we are condensing it into one place, but a lot was found by those people either before Rare started or like independently of us, and then they're like, oh, this is the people that I send my stuff to. The footage is something that directly was like, this is through work in the server.
I had been looking on, not New York Public Library, but it was New York, maybe it was New York Public Library, but it was like a side site. And
New York Archives.
New York Archives, that's it.
It's New York Archives, New York State Archives.
I had been using the weirdest search terms in the world. I think it was doll women in theater, like literally something like that. And I saw, it said Cinderella, or no, it said Wizard of Oz, and I knew that Wizard of Oz
was another Snyder project.
Another Snyder project. And I said, this isn't Raggedy Ann, but it's still interesting. Guess what? Clicked on it, in the list of things at the very bottom, Raggedy Ann. I'm like, well, there's no way. Video doesn't exist. We've been told this a million times. But I was still curious, obviously. I thought it might be like the USSR documentary or something, and they said it was just Act 1. And then, of course, came the process of paying for the digitization, sending over a physical flash drive, getting the physical flash drive back. It was like a million megabytes.
Which is what Kiwi did. Thank you, Kiwi.
What Kiwi did. Yeah. Thank you, Kiwi. Wonderful. And then all of us who raised the money. And then, lo and behold, it was the actual show, and we went insane.
I remember it wasn't just Act 1.
It wasn't just Act 1, it was the whole show, and we still didn't know if it was the actual show. They told us it was, but we assumed like it was news footage or a documentary or something, because we've been told the only copy of the show that exists is in Pat Snyder's hands. That's what we've been told. And no, it was the whole thing. And so when we actually sat down to watch it, it was insane. And then we kept that to ourselves for like 2-3 months.
Because I was writing closed captions for it. We didn't want to release to the public without captions because
even then it was kind of hard to understand.
Yeah. We wanted to make it accessible for people.
We do know now that Moscow footage of the whole show exists somewhere. We don't know where, but we know for a fact that it does exist. Either in a library in Moscow or in another archive in New York or something. So for the longest time, I had been trying to figure out how to get the orchestrations, because that would be so great in preserving the show. Someone had said, if you can find that, the show is basically saved. It's all in its original form. And I was like, I need to find this. And I had found it, but for some reason, out of like 30 of this guy's boxes on the sky, Stan Applebaum. Out of like 30 boxes in his name, it was the only one that was totally restricted. And it stayed like that, and I decided one day randomly to just check it. I don't know why, but I wanted to check it. I think I was looking to see exactly what was in it. It was available for some reason, but the only way you could get it was to go in person. So someone wonderful enough, Falcon in our server was wonderful enough to go and take pictures in person for us.
Twice.
And so
they took twice.
At the New York Public Library.
At the New York Public Library, and with that, we got a song list of the very, very, very first pre-Gibson draft of the show, which was crazy because we had heard about it, but we knew nothing about it. The circus draft is known as.
And there's a little sheet music for it. There's a little sheet music for it.
There's a little bit.
I like
also,
music.
we got we had put No Girl's Toy in just because it's a fan favorite, and we got sheet music that had it placed in the exact spot where we put it in.
Because it has the line cue, just because some little girl's afraid doesn't mean I'm afraid. So there was no other reason, unless it was in that version, that line would be in there. And
it had new lyrics, which we ended up using.
Yeah, it had a third verse. That was.
It does, and I think it had like Henny or Clem. Also, I think there was something weird like that.
That was actually we got that too, but that was for the movie.
So there was two No Girls Toy drafts.
There was 2 No Girls Toys, and one was with the new lyrics for the musical, and one was with mostly the old lyrics, but it had extra characters from the books, and that was for the movie. There were so many things that they weren't in scripts or anything that we just straight up didn't know existed until we got the video. Wolfie Comes Riding being one.
We knew that it was.
But we didn't have an idea for how good it was until we saw it. Bat being on a pole, that one really got us. But a lot of that we carried over to our revisions because we were like, well, we didn't know this would work, but it worked. And the biggie, Rat General D.
Rat General D.
So badly.
It's true.
In there, which it's good. And the rat metaphor, I'm so mad that it was never all together.
You grabbing him?
Sway Gibson wanted it because it's such a good metaphor. It's so good, and it implies so much about mommy.
I have him. He's
I
here.
want to see him.
You want to see him?
Right.
No, I'll just hold it to my face.
I love the idea of rat generally because it implies so much about mommy and mommy's story. Because obviously she runs away with the rat in Rolls Royce that Papa says, and in the tableaus he's presented as an evil rat. And in the production when General D was a rat, that implies a lot, you know? Mommy's probably dead.
It also makes him a very good symbol for death. You know, he's a plague rat. Also, he eats people, so I feel like him being a rat makes that just a little less disgusting.
A little less gross.
Yeah. When we saw the video for the first time, the Asipa tapes, we didn't know that Rat General D had made it to the stage until we saw that.
Gibson specifically said that I'm disappointed that it never made it on stage.
I'm disappointed that the costume and the metaphor never made it onto stage at the same time, because that would have done a lot. That would have...
Yeah, that's true.
And when the metaphor made it to the stage, the costume went, which is so sad.
I don't think he should actually be wearing like a little rat nose. Although I think Brooke has done amazing things with a rat D. But it is very cool though. I mean, I just think that he's also an old man. He's many things. Like, you need to pick one at a time. Like, he could have some, he could have a few different looks. He can have some looks.
So, my one is he's got the hat, and then this is only an occasional thing. In my design, this is only for, like, entrances and exits, and when it's needed to be scary, and otherwise it would just be his face with, like, the usual eye patch and, like,
death makeup.
That's kind of death makeup, like, because I like that better than it being an all-time thing, and also I just really like my gas mask. It brings in the military element into the rat, incorporating the animal into the design of the character instead of just like, oh, we put a nose on him and a tail on him, so he is a military man and also a rat, and instead like building the rat aspects into the military aspects.
And that's what I love about the fandom, even though you're a writer too, so, you know. But I love that it's basically like prototypes for what we want to get on the stage eventually, which is really cool to see.
Again, on the show that we want to produce, our own production, I would like to do makeup, because that's my interest. And I've already started designing makeup for the characters. I've done Wolf because his original makeup is like borderline problematic.
It's just brown.
No, I hear you.
They just painted his face brown, which is not great. I understand why they did it. I think it's because they wanted to match the color of the leather on his gloves to his face and his hair. I was like, you can't just paint a man's face brown. That's not okay. So I designed something more dog-like, it's inspired by Cats, the musical makeup. And then I also designed makeup for Teddy.
Which I love. That's in my brain all the
time. And then I have ideas for Baby, because I feel like she should look more like a doll. And I have an idea of painting a crack across her face to make it seem like why she was discarded. Because we have our whole like little headcanon backstories for all the characters. Our baby doll is a composition doll, so she's not like porcelain. She's made out of wood.
Of course, on stage she's plastic, so she doesn't break.
The prop itself will be plastic, but in canon, she's a composition doll, so she's made out of like wood. I also have ideas for the shooting star and for Comet, which is our version of Papa, who shows up in the Something in the Air sequence. I've got lots of fun ideas for makeup.
Have you had moments in this fandom where you're like, we didn't quite get that one? Like it's the old Batman thing where like almost got him. Like there was something we were trying to get, and maybe we'll get it in the future, but we didn't quite get it. Or what are things you're still trying to do and get?
It's honestly hard. We've been pretty lucky, I think.
Yeah.
For a while, copyright was a roadblock, but we're working on that now, and actually making really good progress. I mean, the progress we're making so far is very extremely promising, so, correspondence, like, every single day, which is really great. Oh, I remember we were trying to figure out where this one Russian production, before we had any orchestrations or any of that, I contacted them, and they never responded, so I contacted them again. No response. I contacted them. I went to go contact them. The email was taken off their website, so I was like, okay, this is sketchy. I went back to the website like a week later. The website wasn't there anymore. And that's not really a roadblock with the actual show, but it was still...
You scared them. You scared them off.
Because they had the original music, and so we were very intrigued.
Pretty accurate staging, too. So someone in the production must have seen it.
Someone must have seen it, and they has to have some access to sheet music or bootleg to recreate it from.
Something we still want to do is find that Moscow footage.
Right.
Absolutely. My fear with that is that it was preserved in Russia for posterity. My fear with that is it's still in Russia. I can't speak Russian well. How do I?
I know people who speak Russian well. There's just what do you tell them to do? And
what do you tell them to do? Where do you look? Another disappointing roadblock is we found a bunch of news footage of Ivy singing and interviews with Pat Snyder, maybe even this review that got it shut down. But that costed $30,000.
Right.
Bother.
Wasn't that from Getty or something like that?
It was. So it was in the archives for some news station, and they gave all their archives to Getty Images, which makes you pay a heck of a lot to use their stuff. We found all of it, and we couldn't end up seeing it ever.
Well, I guess it's still
disappointing. And it might have had the review that got the show shut down in the first place, which made me go crazy.
It might have had the TV spots with Snyder and Gibson.
We have the TV spots of Anne singing the Ragdolly song that we see a clip of in the USSR in full.
Yeah.
So it was a little sad when we couldn't get those. Right. It was $30,000. I'm not going to pay that.
I know.
Yeah, hopefully, though, we might be able to find that because I'm very interested in the news clips, both of the mother who complained and of Snyder and Gibson's response. He had a very interesting. He didn't really want to have a response. Snyder got him into it, and he was like, I'm just going to say something they're not going to like. And she was like, yeah, just go. Just go do the TV slot anyway.
Other than this collection of, TV clips, we have had luck with some clips from TV broadcasts. We found one that had never before seen footage of the Moscow production. It had clips from the Moscow production that we had never seen before, as well as the rehearsals for that Moscow production, which was really, really interesting.
We found footage of it, but it was rented, and so we had to give it back.
Right.
But we did get to see some very nice Moscow footage that includes some of David, which is wonderful. You can tell in every situation, I'm always like, but what happened? But what's with General D? The answer is wonderful David footage that we didn't have before. Oh, and the Ohio, the stuff from Carrie.
Yes, which I'm actually going to see in person in one of these upcoming months because I'm taking a college visit there. And in the meantime, I'm visiting their archives to see her costumes and both of the fish puppets.
Both of the fish puppets, costume sketches, possible scripts.
Yes, the only things that won't be there is the blue and regular camel because some guy has those, and Ivy's heart and her hat because her hat was her dad's. So
Ivy still has her heart.
Still has her heart, which is really cute. But I will be seeing, I'm pretty sure, most of the costumes from the show. And that's going to be super cool.
Because there'll be the Broadway costumes.
The Broadway
costumes. We do not know what the rat in the Rolls Royce looks like on Broadway.
We don't know what he looks like at all.
We might figure it out. There's so many visuals from the Broadway show that are interesting that we've only seen through very, very, very tiny little pictures that we haven't seen.
Especially officially.
Things.
There's also these little, contact sheets and stuff like that. We know that it sort of exists, but it only sort of...
There's so many interesting things that, we don't quite understand still. The nurses were pretty normal in the videos that we have, but of course, they got skimpy somewhere down the road. And
they're very skimpy on Broadway.
There's a single picture of General D with the nurses, and then Anne with a tombstone with her name on it. We don't know what what's
going on there.
What's going on there? It's probably part of Econ's writing, But
yeah,
like really, where does that fit in?
There's a picture of Leo of General D carrying Marcella like bridal style, and I'm like, I don't know why that's
and you're like, where does that come in?
There's also pictures that we believe are from Broadway of the Mexico sequence. It's probably
which is so weird because these are undeveloped, like not undeveloped.
Yeah. Right. It's like a context sheet.
And so you have to zoom in and you're like, is that Mexico? It's Mexico, but it's also Broadway, so what's happening there?
There's a lot of, like, little pictures that you can't see very well. I'm trying to think of what other things that I found really interesting about them. Oh, the Broadway set looks really cool.
Oh, there's one picture of the set that makes me go insane, and I'm so mad that we don't have pictures we can share of it. But it's when he bursts the whole set apart. It's, like, all cracked.
It falls apart. Like, it is chaos, because it's a full...
falling apart, and it's so cool, and I don't know how they did that effect, and I love it.
Because it's, in this version, Marcella's room is a lot more like a box set, versus the SEPA one that you see is like a very deconstructed set, but it's more like a box set, and they destroy this box set.
And when her room gets blown apart, you know, a few of the walls are put on the ground, the bed's, like, moved around a little bit, like, stuff like that. But in this one, full cracks in the wall comes apart, like, just fully... It's insane. And I wish I could share pictures of it, 'cause I love it so much.
The slaughterhouse set looks way worse. It's just a chimney.
Yeah, the slaughterhouse
set looks so but Bat still has a pole, so...
She does.
Most of it's very similar. The fish looks the same, unfortunately.
The fish looks the same.
I wish I like that he spits water now, but he's just goofy looking. There was the one of the first Russian productions we found had this amazing, like...
Anglerfish.
Constructed, like, anglerfish that glowed. Ugh! Bring that back. Okay, that was good.
Right.
Just something, and it should be larger than life and terrifying, and I think that, you know, this Russian production, it was two-dimensional, but, like, very much the size of it, it's like 8 feet by 12 feet. It's huge, and it glows, and so it really gets the effect across a lot better because it's that big. I guess I could open it up now, but I don't want to make my computer handle that.
Another visual that I wished I had seen that I don't know how they did is at the end of Little Music when camels soared into the air. Because you can hear the people in the bootleg applauding like crazy. How did they do that? I don't know. We have no idea.
I believe he was on a fly system.
Well, probably, but like, how did that look? Right,
I don't know how that looked.
And also, in the script, it mentions Yum Yum appearing in puppet form, but nobody we've asked about it remembers it.
Yeah, we know very little about Something in the Air. There's so few pictures of the Broadway Something in the Air.
Like, the only pictures that existed of the wedding, and that's like it.
Yeah, it's just the wedding, nothing else.
And that's such a huge song, so I wish we had more.
Yeah, because there's like there's the whole rat sequence, and there's tango. There's Yum Yum, right, there's the tango, there's Yum Yum's soliloquy, there's so many little bits of Something in the Air. And all you get is the wedding, and it's kind of disappointing.
You get the picture of them like,
with the heart.
Is there something you would say to people who have just watched the ESEPA video? Because that's the easiest way to get into it, I think. What would you, as like your caveats, your footnotes, your actually... One thing you often say in the server is that when you reread the script, it almost has the Dune problem where it's throwing a lot of stuff at you up front, and you don't actually think this thing is that deep, but it's all stuff you actually need to understand. The original David Lynch Dune throws a lot of stuff up at you up front, which you actually do need to know, but it just sort of spits it out, and nobody actually processes that information. And Raggedy Ann has a lot of subtle stuff because you're like, oh, I'm watching a Raggedy Ann musical, but there's actually a lot of stuff happening here. But what would you tell to people as like a caveat?
I think the first thing I always say is this is the very first iteration of the show, so you gotta look at it critically and realize that it got a lot better as it went on. I think more importantly than looking at the mess and weird story that it is, you have to look at the relationships that are there between the characters that work beautifully, that I think they got right off the bat.
The main thing that I mentioned to people is the wedding sequence that was added.
Yeah,
that's always the first thing, is they'll be like, what the hell was Something in the Air? And I'll say, right in the middle, you have, you know, in addition to this cloud sequence, this wish sequence, one of her wishes is for her parents to get back together. That's, like, very important. And as well as the appearance of Yum Yum and Red Fang. That sequence is a big part, because otherwise, you watch Something in the Air, you know what the hell is going on, you don't know why it's in here.
Exactly.
It's so important to the story, and the fact that it's not in the first ESEPA one really throws a lot of people off when they're trying to understand what's going on. But definitely what they did later down the line, as opposed to the very first one, is
a little better.
Yes. They improved it in the second Asipa run, because that's when they added in a lot of the more recognizable things like the wedding sequence and the longer Mexico sequence. Mexico in the first Asipa run was painfully short.
Yes, the one that we hear in the demos is the one they used after the video.
It's really close to the one they used.
Yes.
It's a little bit different. There was the inclusion of Papa and Marcella talking about her mother in the beginning. That was added in the second Asipa run. And like the rat and the Rolls Royce, I think, was added in that
yeah. I can
beginning
check.
part. Yeah.
I'm gonna go pull up the script hell so that
Okay. Thank you.
The script hell is a nightmare, but it is also very useful.
Yeah, it was in the Gibson Journal script fragments that are before 85. So yeah.
Okay. Yes.
That was probably that or Moscow or something. Maybe even Kennedy Center, I think, was definitely one of the best iterations of the show. And it's one that we can't see, which is...
Kennedy Center had Mexico Blue, so I wouldn't say that.
Mexico Blue might be low.
Those of you who don't know what Mexico Blue is, they put blue in the middle of Mexico.
Middle of Mexico, and then they sing blue, and then they keep singing Mexico afterwards.
So you know the point in Mexico where they talk about Camel? Then fully transitions into blue.
Mexico to sing blue.
Mm-hmm.
And then it fully goes back to the last verse of Mexico.
Not even the last verse, it's the "and here we go."
Someone asked, is there any footage or audio of the second Asipa version? No, but the demos are technically the second Asipa production. The demo recordings that you can find of the soundtrack.
That's the closest. So, like, close.
See, the demos are tricky because people said that they were given out at the door at the second Asipa run, but people also say they were made as demos for Broadway to, like, promote the show to get it on Broadway. But the lyrics are also a mix between what's on Broadway and what's literally in one of the earliest versions of the show that exists. So we have no clue, but we're assuming it's closer to second Asipa.
Because it's that cast as well.
It's that cast. Minus a few people. There are a few characters that are like anomalies. They just don't have their regular actors, like Marcella. I think Papa is played by one of the ensemble members in the demos, but we don't really know. It's the demo recordings are an anomaly, really.
Ivy says that she was recording the demos with Trisha Brooks, the original Marcella. It's not her. So,
it sounds like it sounds like Beth Austin.
Elizabeth, that's our guess. Our guess is Beth Austin,
which is
Not
interesting.
really Ivy Austin in any way.
No, it's no relation.
Yeah. By the way, researching The Thief and the Cobbler was exactly like this, where whenever you find out anything, it just raises so much more questions that I can't actually answer.
What you originally asked.
Like knowing more actually makes it more complicated because, like, okay, it's if it was well documented, this is simple, but it's not. You're the ones documenting.
Mm-hmm. It gets even worse with the orchestrations because, as far as we know, the orchestrations don't match up with the scripts because, like, the people copying it over were not looking at the scripts. Probably, or like looking at the wrong scripts. So like the orchestrations aren't even on my timeline because I can't deal with all of the ways that everything is different. I'm pretty sure. See, we know that the orchestrations generally were recorded around the time of the Kennedy Center production. As far as like when that version of the song was actually written, we don't know because they can never keep the lyrics straight.
A lot of the orchestrations that they used for later productions were from earlier productions, just with like handwritten notes or whatever, whenever there was a change. And also, this is really annoying. There's some orchestrations that say like, look at last version or whatever, which we don't have.
Yeah, we don't have the previous version.
So, but what can you do? We have them in most of their entirety, which is good enough for me. Yeah,
like the whole second half of Mexico we don't have because it was like, look at the previous version.
I also think that the anything that's like sheet music is
small. Stop coughing.
that you could distribute. I think you could remake all the sheet music and not really get it.
Yes, we actually are in sort of the process of doing that. But of course, there's some areas that are basically unreadable, so we're just trying to clean that up.
Yeah. From the original Raposo drafts, not from the orchestrations, from the Raposo drafts, which are just piano and vocal, we have some decent ones, which like we do distribute to people occasionally who want to use it for like recitals. You know, stuff like Ragdolly or What Did I Lose?
As for our orchestrations, our wonderful, wonderful musician Hazel, they are kind of redoing the orchestrations for a smaller pit, but still with the same sound and the same vibe. And also, they're doing No Girl's Toy, and they're doing Teddy's verse in the light.
Anything that Panda had, they're reorchestrating.
They're redoing, and it sounds so good, and the work they've done is marvelous. And they also did Somewhere Reprise, not Somewhere.
Somewhere. It's Somewhere Reprise. It's a mix of me and Hazel, I think, because in one Gibson draft, there's a version where the witch sings Somewhere instead of Anne. And it starts off with this. We thought about it. We thought about how we could use it. It starts on the line, I don't want adventure, I'll make do with kindness. And it's just a really sweet line for the witch to sing, sort of. And I thought it said a lot about her character. So there's a lot of pull for me to get that into the show, but you can't mess with What Did I Lose Somewhere in its state currently. So we added a reprise, which is essentially just those two lines, and most of the rest is
some dialogue, and then where's the place for sometime love is always there.
To get that line in, and also to establish more of like a back and forth between the witch and Anne, because while they kind of talk at each other a lot, you don't really get the sense that they're connecting, that they're making a difference in each other's thoughts.
That was one of my big notes about the SEPA production, was that What Did I Lose Somewhere is beautiful, but it's ruined by the fact that they're both singing, honestly, because they're both very good. I believe I captioned it Epic Rap Battles of History, because they're both just going at it, and it feels like two different songs.
Yeah, Marcella in our version doesn't come in until after What Did I Lose Somewhere, so it kind of becomes more about, for the witch, it's more about like her idea of Marcella as a baby. Like baby is a little more present in that scene.
She hasn't seen her again yet.
So it's more about her idea of the child she had, and then it's about them both wanting to take care of Marcella in a way.
Yeah, for Anne, it's Marcella now, and it's kind of both of them feeling like they can't, almost. It's really sweet.
Yeah. Have her and her
when
mom.
Marcella was there before, the problem was they were singing about the same person and the same want, I think, which is, that makes sense. They're still singing about it, but I think in this context, it can almost connect about, they don't know at this point that they're both talking about Marcella, but they know that they want the same thing, so they can kind of connect over that before Marcella enters the scene. I think it's really sweet.
And then you get a little bit of a reprise, which just to bring their conversation together in a way, and also to get that line from the witch of, I don't need, like, the whole make-believe fairy tale, like, I don't care anymore about having, like, this stunning, wonderful life that I'd imagined when I ran off. I just want to have people who love me, and I think I like that line a lot.
Well, I don't need make-believe either. I mean, as a song. What would you say to people right now who are interested in putting on this show all of a sudden, who maybe want to support you or who maybe want to do their own thing? What would you say?
Come help us. If you have connections or anything or experience or anything, come help us. We'd love it.
You'll love it.
Be enthusiastic about it. Spread awareness about it. Make the fandom bigger. Like go
insane. And also, if you want to perform the music, you can. Like, the script is kind of iffy, but no one will come at you for performing any of the music.
And also, guys, Be More Chill got on Broadway because of their crazy fandom. So, I mean, the more interest that is generated in the show, even if it's, like, not the best publicity, which I don't see how that's the case, but... actually, we did have an article that was, like, a negative review, but it was so funny, it doesn't even matter. It was perfect. And
it was mean-spirited, but, like, funny, so we're okay with it.
So, like, the more awareness about the show that exists, the better. So if you want to support us, come join the server, chill out.
Follow the Twitter, the Tumblr, the Instagram. Like, just keep updated.
Spread awareness about the show and be crazy and make the fandom grow.
Honestly, we'll take any support we can get. I tell my friends all the time.
Well, you probably need more YouTubers to actually do videos about it.
So we've had two YouTubers make videos about the show. Of course, Colin Looks Back. He made a video about the show even before Rare was a thing, but then once we found the footage, he made like a follow-up video about it, which was super nice. He's really sweet. And then we've also had, we were featured in a video by Blame It on Jorge, by his most recent like top 10 lost footage or lost media
Finds.
Found in 2021.
2020.
And we were featured in that video, which was really, really cool. And it did bring in some people who had never heard of us and had never heard of the show. Jorge is also very sweet, and I hope we get to work with him again. We are trying to get the attention of Wade in the Wing.
Yes, that's our goal right now, because they do beautiful, wonderful, awesome analyses on musicals, especially ones like Raggedy Ann that flopped. I'm sure a lot of people watch the Carrie one.
Yeah, he made a video about Carrie, which brought a lot of attention to the show.
A ton.
And it told the story of the production, and I think
and
that
the research
revival.
Research that goes into those videos are insane, and
Incredible.
always everything's super accurate. I think it would be wonderful to see a Raggedy Ann one, and I think it would bring a lot of attention to the show and a lot of love.
It would be good, because, I mean, that's what got, some of the organizers into the show. It's wild, and that is something where, like, where do these fandoms come from, and how can you grow it? And so I'm someone who, it's like I've been saying with this, it's like there's a fandom for something that I was researching like 9 years earlier. So okay, I hope there aren't like the same roadblocks. I hope people don't stand in your way, and that there's some, you start to see productions of it. But it does seem like people are more open to it, or some people are, being positive. People that you're contacting are being positive, I think, a lot of them.
Oh, this one is surprising to me. So we've had issues with Patricia Snyder in the past, and she's always been very intimidating. Mm-hmm. But recently, after I reached out to Ivy Austin, updating her on the situation with copyright, she had told Patricia Snyder, who was very enthusiastic, and that was like a shocker for me, because she's super intimidating. We haven't tried to contact her or anything yet, and we
the phrase "no backsies" comes to mind. If you're excited now, no backsies. Well, you do it. Yeah, you're locked in now. We're doing this. We're in it.
Yeah. Brooklyn just put in the comment or in the chat, I did want to say in the future there will likely be more fundraising and easier options for people to get involved. So follow us for that if you're not sure what exactly to contribute.
It's been exciting from my point of view. It's been exciting to see this, because it was obviously in the back of my head. This was always like my best case scenario too, was that someone would hopefully revive the show, or at least we could see it or kind of understand what the deal was with it. And I think the success of Rare has been so just above and beyond that. Like it's really a fandom where you can get into this show and you can understand what they're trying to do. And that was so unthinkable back then. It's been great to see, and I'm really impressed with what this team and this fandom has done.
We did get one last question.
All right.
It says, what are each of your projects for the movement in the future? I'm hoping to get it in either Taft Theater or Music Hall, ideally Music Hall, in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's close to CCM, which is a really good musical theater school, so hopefully that'll get a little bit of a recognition either for me or for the project, and I'm hoping it can get some success there.
Good luck with it.
Fly me out so I can work on it with you.
Of course, of course.
It's like an internet project where, like, is the fandom ever going to get together? That'd be interesting. Or some of them. What are some of your favorite small things about the show? Like small things in the footage?
I could go on about this one forever. It's at the end of What Did I Lose? When Anne kneels to the ground. I literally wrote an essay about this. When Anne kneels to the ground during What Did I Lose? And then at the end when she puts her hand on Marcella's hand. That, like, it's literally such a simple gesture, but it's so telling of what Anne's going through. And just, she's doubting herself, but also she knows she needs to be there for Marcella, and she feels bad that she couldn't have been there for Marcella before when her mother wasn't. And I could go on and on and on about it. There's a whole essay on my Tumblr. Just look at that. But that specific moment, it makes me go insane. I watch it over and over and over again.
There's a lot of subtlety to this script, and some of it is very present in the Asipa video, and some of it is not present enough in the Asipa video. But there's so much that an actor could actually dig into, and I think that's what makes it ripe for revival and this and that. If people have access to all the materials that you've been able to find, but just access to the materials to know how it should be done. There's a lot going on there, and there's little subtle things. Anyway, Ronnie, sorry.
For me, because I've seen the footage like a million times, because I wrote the closed captions, and I was making GIFs, or GIFs if you want to pronounce it the wrong way.
Excuse you.
I'm not going to say anything about that. I'm not going to say anything. Just continue.
Anyway, no, I say it wrong, and I know I say it wrong.
Salty.
But I was making
salty all of a sudden.
So I've made little, I've pointed out lots of little things in the characters in our actors' performances that I just really love. Also, just like Wolf in general, he's my favorite character. The amazing thing is that we couldn't care less about Wolf before we saw the video.
Right.
All because of Tom Plato's performance.
Oh, Tom's Wolf is so good. Broadway Wolf is good, but he seems a little
Broadway Wolf, Gordon Weiss, I think his name is. He performed the character as the character was written, which is fair.
No
thing is,
he's
not written well.
But Tom performed him as like this, not really gross. He's just a little stupid, and he's genuine.
He performed the character much more animalistic than you would expect. It's very he's not afraid to crawl around on the floor, and he's always barking and whimpering and howling, and he's just a dog. And so the creepier things that Wolf does is sort of
they seem just like a thing
recontextualized. Yeah, because he's a dog, he doesn't know better. Whereas if you play him more like a person, it's weird and creepy.
It's like slimy.
Yeah, but Tom Plato portrayed the character very, very genuinely, and it really sort of transforms the character into this very sympathetic and tragic character that I don't know if William Gibson had intended that.
But it's great.
It sure is incredible that Tom Plato was able to do that, and he did it so well. So just that whole thing about the Asipa tape.
Sure.
That is my thing. That I will watch him in the background all the time.
Oh, sure. And that's what I was thinking when I asked this question, by the way. I thought that's exactly what you would say. The wolf he comes riding was something that wasn't really known about. And I don't think from a singing point of view, there's not much singing in it, but just from a story point of view, it is so tragic and it's perfectly placed. And it makes so much more sense. Like the fear of that, and that's kind of his arc where he's where he loses it at the end in a way that really it ramps up. It's really well done and really well placed in story terms. Absolutely. I don't know about singing terms, but
basically they had this song that they had written for Paul Haggard, but he was not a singer or a musician or anything, so he was having a really hard time learning it. So they sort of had to make a choice between giving the song to Paul, who couldn't sing it, or giving it to Tom, who also couldn't sing it. And they chose Tom.
Because he wasn't supposed to sing.
Probably because he at least has like a musical background, and so he could kind of get it. And also I think they were just being really salty and really bitter about Paul not being able to sing it.
Who is also so powerful in the footage. And one of the things I found, because I did a reading of General D just to kind of feel it out. I think I think I would do it differently if I was doing it again. But it was also like My take on it, and I said this in the server, was that General D is himself kind of dying, like he's sort of a decaying old man, and that's something that you really feel. Like there's a tragic quality to him. Like you wonder why he's weak or he gets tired or all this stuff, and he really is kind of a figure of decay, in some respects, and he's just a force of nature. Thank you all for being here. But last things, please say some last things though. Let's do a good wrap up. Let's not just go.
Yes, I'll do a good wrap up. Check out the show. Check out our socials for sure. Ask me about the show. I'll go on about it for hours. Like I said before, join the fandom, go crazy, and also thank you for watching in general. And I love that I've gotten so much support, and we've gotten so much support as an effort, and it's changed my life truly.
Yes, thank you for having us. It was really lovely being able to talk.
Thank you for being here.
Anyone watching, you can find the Raggedy Ann revival effort on Tumblr, Instagram, on Twitter. Also,
TikTok.
Join the Discord server.
Your TikToks are amazing.
Spread the word. Because we
if you're not subscribed to Garrett for some reason, subscribe to Garrett, because Garrett's wonderful and has helped us so much with our work.
Thank you, Gwyn. Much appreciated. And, please keep in touch. Let me know what you're up to. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
I'm like I said, I'm so impressed by everything you've accomplished, and I hope you take over the world.
Thank you, Garrett. It was so nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.